Welcome to our podcast, Inspiring Living, with me, Mark Candelaria. I am an architect, blogger, traveler, chef, father, and husband. I am the founder and now partner of a fabulous 20-person architecture firm specializing in high-end residential architecture, designing amazing homes across the country. We have hosted tours over the last 20 years to Italy, Spain, and soon Napa. And in the course of all this, I have met a lot of interesting people who truly inspire me. We are excited to now be in our second season, and our podcast is about all the opportunities that are right there in front of us to inspire living. Yes, we will talk about architecture and design, but every week we will venture to all sorts of topics that will inspire you, teach you, and motivate you to inspire living every day. My guests will include a wide gamut of amazing people, from those in the design industry to clients to real estate professionals, chefs, artists, sports figures, and philanthropists, and people who just flat out get it. So sit back and enjoy, and let's have some fun exploring all the opportunities that are there just waiting for us. Please subscribe and get ready to be inspired every week. Okay, as my dad says, here we go. Because Inspiring Living is all about the people and the organizations that inspire us, we are excited to have Monogram Appliances as one of our sponsors. Anytime we do a new kitchen or a kitchen remodel, Monogram Appliances are what we recommend to our client. Their appliances are the definition of luxury, meticulously detailed using the finest materials and an ownership experience that is second to none. This is how Monogram is always thinking ahead and inspiring and elevating the kitchen experience. Because at Monogram, they don't just elevate one thing, they elevate everything. Welcome, everyone, and thanks again for listening to our podcast, Inspiring Living. Welcome to Season 2, and we have a very timely podcast for you today featuring a woman and family that truly inspire me. Today we're going to speak with Maria Hansen-Quine, who is the mother of 2 of her own children, but also the mother of 7 children she and her husband Sam have adopted from around the world. So in essence, she is the mother of the world. Children from all different backgrounds, ethnicity, and color. So stay tuned to this podcast, as I know you will find her perspective quite inspiring, given everything that's going on in the world today. So we are now zooming through August, and our Candelaria design team is now in week 24 of working from home. Isabel and I, along with my partner Vivian Ayala, hosted one of our clients and their family for a fantastic pie dinner last night at our Candelaria design offices. And this morning, Isabel and I are off to Kansas City to meet with new clients as we begin a new journey on what will be my 3rd project in the Kansas City area, thanks to the introduction from my good high school friend, Matt Alberts, who lives there in Kansas City area and runs and operates an amazing landscape design and install company. So thanks again, Matt, for all the introductions, and I'm hoping that we can maybe catch up with you and Nancy while we're there. So I'm excited to be flying again and experiencing travel post-COVID, so stay tuned to my thoughts and observations on that. I haven't traveled since March, so I'm a little apprehensive, but on the same side, I'm kind of excited to get out and about and take all the necessary precautions, but I think we'll be just fine, so we're excited. Okay, a couple quick announcements. I hope you all tuned into our cooking class this past Saturday on our Candelaria Design Instagram Live, where we made Tiff's creamy Tuscan salmon, which has been a big hit. Thanks for all the texts and posts and reach outs following the recipe. So that's been fantastic. The recipe, and I believe now the shortened video is on our website. So check that all out. Next month, we will have Isabel in the kitchen making her new Mexico butternut squash chicken red chili enchiladas. So stay tuned for that. They are fantastic, and it's a great recipe. It's very easy, and it is absolutely delicious. We have some great guest chefs scheduled this fall, so get ready for some fun in the Candelaria Monogram kitchen. Next, I want to congratulate my wife and her team at Earth and Images for winning 4 ASID awards this past weekend, all of which are Candelaria design projects, along with our good friend, the talented Anita Lang, who also received several awards for a number of our projects, including winning the Best of Show for a residential project, which honored an amazing home we collaborated on with Schultz Development. Anita's podcast is featured in episode 40 of our season 1, so check that out. Congrats to all of you. Finally, I want to congratulate my partners Evelyn Jung, Meredith Thompson, and Vivian Ayala, as this week we signed phase 2 of our buy-sell agreement, and now they are major owners of our company. So well deserved, and I am so excited with where we will take this company from here. Check out their individual respective podcasts for their stories in episodes 48, 49, and 50 of season 1. Okay, I want to give a big thank you to all of you who have been listening to our podcast as our listeners keep growing nicely. We had our biggest month of downloads ever last month, so thank you so much, and we're doing great this month. Thank you also for the ratings and reviews. I really appreciate those, and here's the deal. The first review we get dated August 27th or later will receive a free Candelaria collection pasta maker. So give us some love on those ratings and reviews, and you may be making some pasta this weekend. We do our best to inspire living in everything we do, from our podcast to our cooking classes to our tours, and of course, with our Candelaria Design homes. Okay, have a great week, everyone. Stay safe, and let's all live our lives with love, compassion, grace, and positivity. Okay, here we go. Today's guest is an inspiring woman and champion for children and diversity, Maria Hansen-Quine.
Yes.
I said it right?
Yes.
This is our first time meeting, as my wife and I were watching a Hillsong Church service, which we were just talking about one morning, and they had this amazing lady speaking about her family of 9.
That's right.
7 of whom are adopted from different countries.
Yep.
She was sharing her unique experience teaching, counseling, and raising children from different backgrounds over the years, and I was just so inspired and interested in learning more about your experience and perspectives, and just given everything that's going on in the world these days, it's just like I want to learn more.
Awesome.
That's all there is to it. And
yep.
I'm very naive. I've experienced my own what do you call it? Prejudice.
Yep.
I'm Spanish, German. I'm a weird combination. But I know what that feels like.
Right.
And
yep.
so I kind of get it in my own unique sense. But anyway, it's really great for you to be here. Your husband, Sam, is here, and I've just enjoyed the 5-10 minutes we've been together so far. And I go, okay, these are people I want to be with all the time. So
it's awesome. Thank you
welcome.
for having us.
You're
it's
welcome.
Really an
That's
honor.
great. And you got this great book that we're going to talk about. And let's start telling us about where you're from and how you ended up here in Arizona. You started telling me a little bit. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's actually a really big question.
Okay.
Which
I don't know what I
wouldn't expect, right?
Yeah.
So I'm originally from the Faroe Islands, which is a little country between Scotland and Iceland.
Okay, yeah, I had no clue where that was. I thought, okay, we're out there in Canada somewhere. Where's the Faroe Islands?
I thought
between
maybe
Iceland,
Mark would know.
I haven't heard of
You'll
that.
have to. Maybe it's a place to visit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little, very small country. It does not even make it on some maps.
So between Iceland and Scotland.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and it legally belongs to Denmark, but is
Okay.
its own nation and own currency and language.
Wow.
So at the age of 11, I immigrated to Canada.
Okay.
And so lived in Canada.
You get that little Canada accent. I can hear it a little bit.
Yep. And then moved to the States when I married my husband, which was 23 years ago. So really, this is my third country. So
amazing. What a transition.
Yes. And learned English as an 11-year-old.
So yeah, what do they speak in Faroe?
Faroese.
Seriously?
Yeah.
There is a Faroese language?
There is a Faroese language.
Wow. I got to check that out on my translator app and see if that shows up.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you went there. You went to in Canada. Did you go all the way to Calgary, or were you on Eastern
So I lived outside of Toronto in Hamilton.
Okay.
It's a city outside of kind of in the suburbs there. And I was there until I went to college, which I went to British Columbia for undergraduate.
Yep.
And then Sam and I got married, my husband and I.
So you met there?
We met there.
Okay.
Yep. And got married pretty shortly after I graduated. He is a couple years ahead of me in school. And then right after marriage, we lived in Washington State.
Okay. Where in Washington State?
Just north of Bellingham, right by the Canadian border.
Yep.
Sweet spot.
Yep.
And after a couple years of marriage, we moved to New Jersey.
Wow. That's quite a change.
Yep. Spent 4 years in New Jersey and then moved back to Washington after that time. And 2 years ago, came to Arizona. So kind of a journey.
So why did you come here?
Good question. At the end of the day, we're people of faith, and we feel like God called us here, and so we came for that purpose. And the other factors that played into that is we wanted more diversity for our kids. The other big piece for us is we have a son who fought cancer and is blind, and the valley is actually known as a mecca for resources for kids who are blind. So our son is highly intelligent. They think he's actually gifted, so he's in a regular education class. But there's just a lot more services in the state of Arizona and in the valley in comparison to Washington.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we brought that to our kids and made the hard decision. We have we had 4 teenagers in high school at that point, and came to the state of Arizona.
That's amazing.
So
okay, so I want to back up. So you met Sam at Trinity College.
Yeah, Trinity Western University.
Trinity Western University in British Columbia.
Yeah.
Okay. And Sam, where are you from? Where's Sam from?
Sam originally is from South Korea.
Okay.
And he was adopted as a baby.
Okay.
And then his dad
in Canada?
No, in the United States.
Okay.
And his dad is retired out of the Navy. So he spent most of his time in California, but also in Chicago, and then went up to Canada for college. So really think about the diversity of the different places we've lived and the different cultures that we've both
exposed to.
Been able to see, and kind of what unites us in as a couple and as a family.
So tell me a little bit how you guys met. I love romance stories. Okay.
So my first image of my husband Sam is I was a freshman in college. I was sitting there with a bunch of friends, and I honestly remember him coming, literally bouncing into the room, full of energy and life. And I just was like, who is this guy? And then kind of later met him, and he very quickly asked me out. So, and the rest
is history.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So,
and what year was that now?
So we met, what year was that? We met in 1994.
Okay, 94.
Yeah.
Wow. You guys look young.
We get that.
Holy cow, you got 9 kids and you look so young. Okay, I got to know the secret here, so we'll get to that eventually. That's amazing.
Thank you. We get that. So we'll take
whatever
that.
You're doing, keep doing
we'll
it.
take it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you got married. You got married there in British Columbia?
Actually in Ontario, outside of Toronto.
Okay, so you went back to Toronto, got married, probably had family there, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Okay, so you got married there, but then did you live there for a little bit?
We lived in Washington State.
Okay, so you went right to Washington State.
Yeah, we lived in Bellingham, Washington, which is a sweet little city right on the water there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started living there. Did you have children right away?
No. So we, you know what? We always, our plan for kids was to have 2 kids.
Okay.
And
that's what they call them, plans, right?
Yeah, right. and that God writes the best stories,
oh,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. You could never come up with the stories I've seen.
Right?
Yeah.
So we had been married for 5 years before we had kids. So we kind of, in all honesty, we're just having fun being a couple and exploring the world.
Yeah, sounds like that was smart.
We traveled a bit kind of in that time frame. And then I always knew that I'd want to go on to graduate level work. And so
So was your undergraduate work in counseling?
It was in psychology.
Psychology, okay.
And then actually when I was at Trinity Western University, I went to Camden, New Jersey for 2 summers.
Okay,
and
so that's how you ended up over there.
Yeah, so I ran day camps there with a ministry called Urban Promise. And I honestly really wanted to stay there and just devote my whole life to doing that, and heard God say, no, this is not what I've called you to. And when I was there, I learned about Rutgers and just heard God say, one day you'll go to that school. And so when I went to think about where am I going to go to school, Rutgers was the only place I applied.
Interesting.
And so, and we thought of it too, will be an adventure. We'll explore the East Coast.
Yeah.
We were 40 minutes from New York City. Yeah. It was really a sweet kind of time together.
That's
so
cool. So you did all that, just the 2 of you.
Yep.
And then when did you after that, you had your first child? Or
that's such a good question.
I'm trying to put this all in some kind of order here.
Some kind of sequential order.
Yeah.
So, you know what? We had been married for 5 years, and we're thinking, you know what? In the next couple of years, we'll have kids. And in all honesty, talking about kids, even at that point, I was like, do I even want kids? Honestly, that's how radically my heart has changed. And so we were living in New Jersey. We had actually bought tickets to go to Europe. I'd given notice at my job, and we were making plans to move back to Washington State.
Okay.
And so this is quite literally what happened was that God radically interrupted our life, and in a weekend, we became parents.
Wow.
So we adopted our first, and we always planned on adopting one when we came together as a couple and having one biological. So we thought, this is the plan. This is what we were thinking. And we knew our daughter, and she is now our oldest. She's 18. And so it literally, I mean, the details of all that went into that is crazy and awesome. But quite literally, in a weekend, we.
So in the weekend, you guys just decided we're adopting.
So the short story is.
Yeah, I want to hear how this. You guys are thinking about traveling. We're going to Rutgers. We're going to New York City on the weekend. Oh, let's adopt a child. Where does that come from?
God, I mean, really, right? Like, so there was a, and like back then there was no smartphones.
Right.
Like we used a telephone book. We used maps. So we belonged to a church there, and there was a couple there that had adopted 2 girls, and we babysat for them because we very much believe in couples spending time together.
Sure.
And so we just kind of did that. And their daughters were adopted.
Okay.
And they still had relationship with the birth mom. And so they knew she was pregnant, and we knew, and we just kind of randomly had said, if she is thinking about giving this baby up for adoption, we would adopt this baby.
Wow.
Never thinking anything would ever happen.
Right.
Right? Because we'd made these plans. And so literally on a Tuesday, they called us and said, she's having the baby in a couple of weeks. She's talking about adoption. Maybe you should get your paperwork ready. And we thought, nah, that's not going to happen. Like, that's not.
Wait a minute. We were just saying that.
That's not going to happen.
In
right?
2 weeks?
So we literally did nothing. And then on that Friday night, we went over to babysit their girls. And we walked in the door. And I just remember this in my mind, walking in, them walking towards us and saying, she had the baby and wants to meet you tomorrow.
Wow.
So the next day we drove. It was about 3 hours away. We drove to the city that she was born in. We spent the day with the birth mom at the hospital. And by the end of the day, she said, I want you to have her. I'm released tomorrow.
Wow. So your life could change radically.
Radically.
In just a couple weeks.
Literally, within one weekend.
That's amazing.
So we had temporary custody papers at first because we didn't have any of the adoption paperwork that had to be done, right? And so, and then about 6 months or so, 8 months later, the birth mom was able to sign over legal rights to us.
But during that time, you were...
We had her, which is why the temporary custody papers. It also went over state borders, and so just making sure that you're following the law.
Yeah.
And so we had her, adopted her, and then 3 years later, because at that time, too, I very much thought, who has more than 2 kids? And if they have them, don't have them close together. So seemingly in a 3-year plan, we had a biological son 3 years later.
That was your second child?
That was our second child.
Okay.
And so we thought, this is the perfect
Yeah, you get
plan.
the perfect setup.
This is what we want to do, right?
Okay. At this point, were you in Bellingham?
At this point, we were in Bellingham. Our son was born. And so about a year after, and our oldest, her name is Bella, about a year after.
My oldest, well, not my oldest, but my 18-year-old is Bella.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yep.
And so, she was 1 when we moved back to Washington State. And then she was 3 when her brother was born.
Gotcha.
And so for us, too, in terms of adoption, for us, it's an equal choice. And we just really feel like there's so many kids in the world that need families. We can be that family.
Yeah.
And it's pretty simple. I mean, that's our approach to it.
Interesting.
And so when we were, and again, I still had all these ideas in my head of what my life should look like and time frames and all of this. So when Matthias, that's our biological son, that's a Faroese name.
Yep.
When he was 1, God started, actually he was just a few months old when God started just messing, I want to say that he just was starting to mess with my heart. And we got introduced to the plight of girls in China at that time. And it is a plight, right? The things that girls in China have faced through the years. And so this was, 13, 14 years ago. And I went to a professional conference one day, and there happened to be an adoption agency there that did adoptions with China. And I came home and kind of told Sam, and then he said, which at this point we dated for 4 years, been married for 8, and he's like, I've always wanted to adopt from China. And I was like, what? How come you've never said this before? All to say, that's the short story of God really directing us to our daughter. And about a year or so later, we adopted our third child.
Right.
And she was from China and was almost 3 when we brought her home, and she is now our 17-year-old.
Goes fast, doesn't it?
It does.
Especially when you start
Right?
having kids, it seems like the time just flies, doesn't it?
Yep. I always say the days are long, but the years are quick.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't make that up.
That's a
but
good one.
It was
That's true.
right one that I kind of.
So now you have 3.
Now we have 3, and then after that, we've always tried to expose our kids to the needs of the world, really, and that's the only kind of thing that makes sense to my mind and God again of this next story. And really, I'm giving you the short story. But our Bella then was about 4, and she started saying, as a little 4-year-old, "Mom, we should adopt a little boy from Africa."
Interesting. Just came from somewhere.
Just came from somewhere, right?
Well, we know where it came from.
We do know where it came from, but she kept it up for about 6 months.
That's so crazy.
Yep. And so much so that Sam and I were like, okay, maybe we should start looking into this and praying about this. And the short story is, again, time frame, I kind of lose sight of it. A year and a half or so later, we adopted a son from Ghana, West Africa.
Wow.
And he was 8 months old when we brought him home. For his adoption, I traveled 2 times to Ghana, so got to really spend some time there. And yeah, really, really miraculous in terms of even adoption process, because not a lot of babies have been adopted out of Ghana, but his early beginnings were so traumatic that I don't know, God just kind of worked it out that he was probably a handful of babies ever to be adopted out of the country.
Interesting.
So brought him home, and he, sweetest of sweets, and he is now 13. He's clearly Black, right? It's part of my heart and my fight for some of my books.
Yeah.
And, even this is not, we're not talking about this right at this moment, but at that time, I really questioned with God of whether raising a Black son was something that I was capable of or could do a good job with. So his adoption was not, he was probably the only one where I was not like, you want me to have 4 kids. It was more, you want me to raise a Black son. And because of my time in Camden at that time and my graduate work and even work with kids, I was as aware as I could, of what a Black man faces in our country.
Yeah, there was some incident at Rutgers. I can't remember what it was that had to do with something like that, and I can't remember when the time frame was. I don't know, was it football or basketball? It was some sports-related thing. I thought you might know, but so there was a heightened awareness then of what you were taking on.
Of what I was taking on, and what we were taking on, which is, steep learning curve.
Yeah, I bet.
Constant, right?
Yeah.
So Sam came with for one of the trips, not when we brought Cody home, the first trip to Ghana. And when we were there, the woman who was running the orphanage that Cody was connected with told us about a little girl that had a hand difference. And our daughter from China also has a hand difference. So she was
what's a hand difference? Just so I don't understand what that means.
Well, I explained part of diversity is that we all have differences from each other, right? It's not like you're different from me, we're different from each other. And so instead of setting a standard, I say hand difference. So my daughter Ella, who illustrated the book with me, she's missing a hand.
Oh, okay.
And our daughter Faith from China has 4 fingers on each hand and has had a total of 10 surgeries kind of, to try to make her hands more functional. So Romana knew about our daughter Faith, and was just asking us. And kind of in that moment of her asking us, we knew that God was calling us to Ella, who then about a year after Cody came home, we went back to Ghana, again, a couple of trips, and brought Ella home. And Ella was our oldest adopted, so she was almost 5 when we brought her home. And she'll be turning 16 in September.
Crazy.
So now we're at 5.
Yep. You're a little over halfway there.
I'm thinking we're done. Not thinking that we're halfway there, right? Like not at all.
That didn't occur to you at that point.
I mean, at one point back then, I think we had a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, 2 3-year-olds.
Yeah, so that's
busy.
It
was a very, very busy time for sure. Probably the busiest time. I feel like in terms of parenting, because they were all littles, right, and very hands-on. So. After Cody kind of what happened then is that our biological son started saying, "How come there's four adopt or four adopted, one by? Why don't you have a second biological?" And we were like, "We don't really know. We'd never honestly
You probably didn't have time to think about it.
And so the short story is that we decided we would try for there's a lot of details involved with that, but because at this point I was 36 or 37 when I had our second biological. But before she was born, we also God called us back to China, and kind of what we learned in bringing our daughter home from China is that there's actually a lot of boys that wait. And usually they have minor special needs to major. But because when people think of adoption, they tend to think girls. And with China, they tend to think girls, the boys wait. And so in that time frame, again, God clearly called us to a little boy who we brought home about 6 months before our Liliana was born. But so that
Pretty
journey
close.
kind of overlapped. Yeah. And he was 2 when we brought him home.
Wow.
So now we're at 7.
You're getting it done. You're getting it done quicker though. Now it's like it's really starting to speed up.
It is really trying to speed up. And one thing about Sam and I is my husband is that we thriving is a value in our family. It's, I would say it's a part of our family culture and playing.
And what do you mean by that?
Yeah, right. Sometimes I hear people talking about their life, and it just feels to me that's going to sound like a judgment, but they're merely surviving and just trying to get through.
Right.
And that is not our philosophy or our value. We very much believe in carpe diem, and we very much intentionally go after play with our kids. For us, that typically is outdoors.
Yep.
We lived in Washington State, so we were on the coast, so a lot of time at Washington Beach.
Sure.
We spent a lot of time up in Whistler, Canada every summer.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Bike riding and hiking or whatever that might look like. But we tend to be more active outdoors people. Nice. And I only mention that because after each adoption, you can imagine we've kind of had to go after that. And all of our adopted kids have trauma in different levels for sure.
Different events and different things.
Yeah. And so play is very therapeutic. And again, I'm a counselor. So so we've always kind of gone after that. And so during that time frame, so we added 2 pretty close to each other, a newborn baby and a 2-year-old that also needed some surgeries and had some things that he had to go through. And so I feel like kind of after Jace was probably about 3, so he was older than 3. He was probably more like 4, 5. Liliana was almost, she was the one who was almost 3 when we again started feeling God call us towards adoption. And we were in our mind, we were like, this is going to sound funny, but I remember thinking our life is really sweet. In terms of trauma parenting is how we parent, is things are going really well. Why would we adopt more? Because every time you do adopt, which I think you're a little bit familiar with, is you're bringing trauma into your family.
Sure.
And you have to be very aware of that. And so we were very aware of that. We have one of our kids who has probably more of a trauma history than all the other put together. So we work very hard to this day for this one particular child. And so in that time, it was like, seriously, God, like life's sweet with our 7. And you really, which I know is often a process that people go through when they consider adoption, is this going to mess up my family? Is it going to wreck my life? Yeah, it will.
Yeah. I have 3 daughters, and they're all my biological daughters.
Yeah.
And I just know from 3 how diverse they are.
Yes.
And how, they could not be more different.
Right.
So I can't imagine how 7 would be. They cannot be the same. They're totally different, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the beauty of diversity, right? And so then.
But you figure a formula to make it work. Then all of a sudden you get. You think you got a formula to make it work.
You think you got.
But then all of a sudden you add that another piece. I can only imagine that formula completely has to change.
Yeah, and you have to change.
Right.
Right. And so we then, short story is we started an adoption process for Julia Grace. And I wanted to call her Jewel. I think you've heard me call my kids Jules. And the others were like, we're all Jules. You can't call her that. And so landed on Julia. And then the beautiful thing about our kids and just the hearts that I feel like God's given them is they said, not Sam and I said, sometimes people think that I or my husband and I came up with this plan to have a lot of kids. This was not our plan. This was not our idea. And even as we started that adoption paperwork for Julia, our kids said we should adopt a boy too. So, you think about that, right? Just resources and all the different things that go on for kids. And they just knew that there was little boys that waited in China at that time. And so through, again, their advocacy, God brought us to our son, Jax, and Julia and Jax both came home at the same time from China.
Wow.
And it's been
about 3 from China then.
We have 4 from China, 2
okay.
from Ghana, West Africa, and then 1 adopted from the United States.
Okay.
And then we have a bonus adult daughter I have to just throw in too, who's 25, and she's claimed us and we've claimed her. So
wow, that's just amazing, you guys.
Yeah.
It is amazing. I mean, it's hard for me just to sort it all out and just keep track. I was like, I should have brought a pad and wrote this all down. I'm going to mess it all up.
No, it's all good.
That's just amazing. So how old are you guys, if I can ask you?
Well, I always lose track. I believe I'm 46 and he's 47.
Okay. Well, you both, you both look really young.
Thank you.
I would have said 36.
Thank you. We'll take it.
Yeah, for sure.
We both just had birthdays, so
we
happy
both
birthday. Aged. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so at some point you're doing all this. I mean, you probably had some thought that, okay, we're on to something here that's a little, obviously very different from what most people are doing. And then you have the children from all different cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities. Mm-hmm. And so was there a point where you just sat and thought, like, wow, what are we doing? What have we done? What have we created here? And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying in a beautiful way.
I don't know more than anything, I feel like as a 20-year-old, I think we both set out to just say yes to what God asked. Mm-hmm. And so you can imagine with all of that parenting that has taken place. And the other thing that I haven't mentioned is that our son Jax fought cancer for a good 2 to 3 years once we brought him home from China. So I don't know how much processing we've had, but every time we have brought a child home, we've gone after thriving, right? And so maybe that's the intentionality of like, okay, now we're at 7, now we're at 9. How are we going to thrive? Because we very much, again, like I said, believe in that and fight for that. So I think for us, like too, culturally, and honestly, maybe in the, I've been doing lots of different writing for the last year or so. I think in that writing is more the realization of reflection.
Right.
Of
you have the time to kind of organize all those thoughts.
The thoughts.
Like, wow, I really have accomplished something here. And
the stories,
Yeah.
But God's been faithful through it, and it's definitely messy and complicated and hard and awesome at the same time.
Yeah. Right?
And so I think more than anything, we feel like we are the blessed ones, and we can genuinely say that. Mm-hmm. This wasn't the life I would have planned or picked. Yeah. Had I known about it, I probably would have said no. But I wouldn't choose any other life. Right.
Yeah, I know what you mean in that. I mean, everyone's experience in life is totally different. Mm-hmm. And you've taken the course you've taken, which is just phenomenal, by the way. In my own personal life, I've had lots of ups and downs and, tragedies and good things. And my wife just is a cancer survivor also.
She is.
So I know, everyone knows their version of that story.
Yes.
No one's story is the same, obviously.
No.
But we totally believe the thriving idea that you said. And so I've always kind of been that way, and through these experiences, I know that's the right way. It's like every day is a total gift.
Yes.
And it's just like, make the most of it. And I've learned not to sweat the small stuff anymore, because it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, you just learn that, tomorrow there's going to be more small stuff.
Yep.
And why lose myself in that when I've got all this amazing beauty around me?
Right.
And people tend just to focus on the wrong side of the pendulum, right?
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
what I find.
No, amen, right there with you.
Yeah, it's
It,
like focus on all the good things that you have in your life, and just
absolutely.
keep focusing on that.
Yep.
And that magnet will draw you to
Mhm.
goodness.
Mhm.
I think.
No, I'm fully there. And then, as having a wife that went through cancer,
Hmm.
when you go through life and death, you change.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You change, and that was probably part of the question of coming to Arizona. A lot of it got stirred in that time
Hmm.
of your perspective on life. You realize really what a gift it is,
Yeah.
and how in a minute anything can change.
Sure. Yeah.
So
You're a testament to that.
yeah,
For sure. So let me on that subject. I'm really curious. Is your perspective? And this is going to get totally off subject,
that's
but
okay.
your perspective on the life beyond this life.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? Given what you've seen, I'm
Yeah.
just curious what you think. Like beyond this life, are you afraid to lose your life?
No.
No,
No.
I thought that's what I would have expected. I would have put a lot of money that would have been your answer.
No, I mean, I believe in heaven.
Yeah.
I do, and I believe one day that we will face our Creator God,
Mhm.
right? And I believe I will go to heaven
Mhm.
after after death.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
I
it's
mean,
not afraid of it.
no, I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah, that's how I am.
And really, our son. There was a time where the doctors thought he would not make it,
Mhm.
and they told us so, and told us we should finish cancer. And I just, during that time, I feel like it was probably the closest I've ever had to. I've ever come to had to really look at eternity in the eyes,
Mhm.
and wrestle with what if my son doesn't live through this.
Right.
And that's, it sounds really simple maybe explaining it,
No,
but
I
I think
understand it.
you
I went
understand.
right through that same
Yep.
thing. I mean, we went through breast cancer, stage 4, just to give you a perspective on my end. And then we were through chemo, through radiation. We're pretty much to the goal line.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we've got this.
Yeah.
And then she gets diagnosed with brain cancer.
Mm.
It's like, and at that point, I'm just like, this isn't going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's when I remember saying, and then, her mom was just in tears, and they were both in tears. And then at that point, I just said, you know what? We're going to get through this too, you guys.
Yeah.
And I was the one that just kind of said, let's just keep going. Let's
Yeah.
just go.
Yeah.
And we got on the
And
other
you
side.
got to the other side. It's awesome.
And so I don't know where I was going with that, but other than the
that's-
fact it's just like you got to stay positive, and you do have to thrive, and you do have to
Yes.
just keep going.
And have perspective of, like we've
Right.
said, life is a gift.
It is a
right?
gift.
And to
Totally.
try to make the most
Out of every day.
of every day.
Every
That's
moment.
what I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, and then
For sure.
like this moment is just I was so excited to meet you guys today because I watched that episode on the Hillsong, and it was so short. And that's what I always love about these podcasts is like, I get a whole hour, to get into the story a little bit more because it was so intriguing.
Thank you.
And I love the photos,
Mm-hmm.
which I know we'll post some on
Thank
when we
you.
do this podcast. Your family is absolutely gorgeous. To
Thank
me,
you.
And again, I'm gonna say whatever I think.
You
It may
can.
not be politically correct, and I don't really care because I'm saying it from the heart. And I know I'm not racist or anything. I could care less if you have polka dots or
Right.
zebra stripes. It does not matter to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I look at your family and I go, "That's the world. You guys are raising the world under your roof."
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's just so freaking cool.
Thank you.
So I just love that. So I want to meet these people. 'Cause that's how I look at the world. It's like
No.
the world's such a hard place as it is. And
Yeah.
why do we need to make it more difficult?
I agree.
It's like,
Well,
gosh.
People, you can imagine, we've gotten that we are like the United Nations. We have gotten, and people also have been said that we're a glimpse of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I feel like through the years I've dismissed that, but kind of what has been highlighted in the last 8 months,
Mm-hmm.
that has more so resonated with my heart. Of the idea of that, and really the idea of that is that we should all be celebrating the beauty of who each one of us is,
Right.
right? And our diversity uniting us.
Right.
And so, and again, in talking to us, we didn't set out to do this, and so I don't know. That's really that's special. That's had more meaning to my heart. More recently with the things that have happened within our nation and
Right.
have been highlighted. So
Right. And you just made me think of something that I've never thought of before is why don't we spend more time making heaven here
right.
versus making hell here.
Right.
It's like, what would heaven look like? Let's just create that.
Right.
Let's focus on creating that
Right.
instead of the alternative.
Absolutely.
And it's like, why aren't we doing this?
I don't know.
So that's what I love about all these things. It's like the opportunities are endless.
They are
really,
endless.
right?
For sure.
So your oldest is 18 right now.
She's 18. Yeah.
Okay. How old is your youngest?
We've got 2 that are in 2nd grade.
Wow. So from 2nd to 18. So that's kind of like me. My oldest, Tiffany, who you've spoken to and probably maybe emailed with, she's going to be in her 30s.
Okay.
She gets really mad. Dad, don't tell my age.
Okay.
And she's
somewhere in
she's
there.
North of 30, yeah. And then I've got a 15-year-old now.
Oh, you too.
And a 18-year-old.
That's
so it's about the same span.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it
to see
is.
the simultaneous perspectives.
Right.
Right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They're spread out.
And you learn a lot.
Yeah.
Because when they're all 3, 4, and 5, you're trying to get, like you said, that's a lot of work, and you're just getting through it. But then when you have an 18-year-old and now what you said, 5-year-old,
7.
7-year-old,
Yeah.
you it's like you get a flashback in time.
You do for sure.
Right?
Yep. For
it's
sure.
Like, oh wow, I got to do 7 again, and
yeah,
you do it a little differently, don't you?
You do it a little different. You have a little bit better perspective.
A little better wisdom.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's
for
interesting.
Sure.
So in terms of raising the children, then I was really curious. I'm sure it's not just like I raised 3 girls and they are who they are, and I love them to death. Don't get me wrong, but you have children of different diversity, different color. I'm sure there was a lot of tough incidents with ignorant people out there that you've had to deal with over those years. Yeah,
and honestly, I think even early on, as an adoptive family, you become conspicuous, right?
Yeah.
You cannot go out and just kind of do your thing anymore. I mean, that's a really a big generalization at the same time. I realize, but I feel like very early on we decided to not care what other people thought.
Yeah, it doesn't matter really.
No, and so we honestly kind of tuned them out and taught our kids to tune them out and taught our kids that when people asked questions, whether they were well-meaning or not, that it was their choice of whether they wanted to answer them, ignore them, deflect them, make it into a joke.
Right.
And so we've kind of, that's how we've rolled. I have to say, it's been a gift, our time in Washington State. We lived in a small town. I was a school counselor in one of the schools that my kids attended.
Wow.
So you can imagine kind of the privilege, perhaps, or the gifts or the opportunities that come through that. And I taught a diversity unit at the curriculum at the school that my kids attended.
Interesting.
So that really created this, I think, unique experience for our kids that maybe other kids wouldn't have had. And so. So
this is not only your life, it's your career too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what Tiff wrote here is I read on your book's website that you have devoted the past 22 years to working with children in different states, different schools, to group homes and outpatient therapy, children's programs, homeless shelters.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. So you've seen just about everything, I would guess.
I've seen just about everything.
Yeah.
And I still do.
Yeah.
I still work as a school counselor, and the stories that either parents or children bring to me are huge.
That's cool. We've been involved with the Dream House here. I don't know if you know about that.
No.
It's a group that's taken an old hotel that we've been slowly refurbishing, rehabbing, and they bring sexually abused women that have been, taken in camps or whatever. I mean, bring them back and try to re-assimilate them.
Yeah.
Some of them have children.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing what some of these women have to go through. And so we've been involved with that. We had one of the heads from Generation Justice. You know her? Oh, you need to meet her. She's an amazing lady. She's doing a lot of the same thing you're doing. So I definitely have to put the two of you together.
Awesome.
I'll give you her podcast to listen to because she's an amazing lady, doing very similar things.
Awesome.
And so what I love is just making people aware of some of the goodness that's out there and some of the opportunities that are out there. And, I think everyone gets so hung up and focused, again, on the negativity and all the bad stuff that's happening. It's like, come on, there are some great people, and they don't ever seem to get any
No.
fanfare or any, like, it's like, look at this. Not everything's like this.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And how do you, with what's been going on lately, how do you teach your kids to assimilate some of that information? Or do you try to keep them away from it? Or how are you dealing with some of that?
The stories of racism that have been
just
come
the
out
whole things that's been going on
into the news.
Yeah.
You know what? The racist.
Because they're teenagers, so
they're
I'm sure
teenagers.
they're seeing everything.
They are, and our little ones are actually pretty in the know too.
Yeah.
And so, because that's just how we raise them, and I think they've listened to lots of podcasts and interviews by different people that my husband and I have listened to. Even in the last 6 months, we kind of make them listen to. But the conversation of diversity and racism has been ongoing through the years, so it's not a new topic for them. So in terms of, I think a lot of it for us then has been reiterating things that we've already talked to them about. And then I think the other big thing that has happened for both my husband Sam and I, is that I don't know. Honestly, I thought in my mind that things were getting better.
That was my next question. That was the next thing I was going to ask you. Do you think? I lived through the '60s. Okay, and I was young. I was a child at that time. But I remember watching the news and watching Martin Luther King's assassination as a kid, and then Robert Kennedy, and all those horrible things. And I keep thinking, well, things have got to be getting better, but I'm looking at through my eyes, and I go, well, maybe it is. Maybe I'm not aware of what's still going on.
Right.
And you see some of this stuff, and I said, well, this stuff must still be going on.
Yeah.
And it's like, why?
Yeah.
I don't get it. And I'll just come right out there. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat.
Me neither.
I'm an American, okay? I'm an American.
Me neither.
Where
Same.
is the American candidate?
Yeah.
Just give me someone that's in the middle here somewhere and just represents goodness and let's get along, and let's not this whole thing. It's just gotten so bad.
I agree. I'm not political, so I never say anything with a political lens, and sometimes I feel like that's important to say because people
they want to put you in a box.
Right, and I don't, that's not me.
Yeah, me either.
So, no, I think in my heart I really thought things were getting better in our nation when it comes to racism, and I think more than anything, the things that have been brought to the news has highlighted in my mind that they haven't.
Yeah.
And at the same time, of course, there's good people definitely advocating and have been doing good work through the years. The other thing that I believe strongly and that I've seen is that since the things that have been highlighted, there has been a lot of changes that have been made and are being made. And people are having real conversations that have needed to happen, because I think a lot of people have thought things like you and I, in that, things have gotten better and want things to get better. Yeah. Right? There's a lot of people that are in that camp, if we want to say. And so those people have been advocating in their circle of influence. Right. And that's what I'm seeing and hearing a lot of. I also hear the others. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not, because I hear them. And as somebody who's advocating for justice, for all races in our nation, I hear the others. Yeah. But I'm not choosing to focus on them. Right. Not anymore. Yeah,
well, that's good. I think it's amazing. So tell us about your book. Let's talk about your book a little bit.
Yeah. So
because the time goes fast, and I could go. I want to make sure I get to the points that I really have got to. Then we could jump back. But tell us about your book, because your book is so cute and so meaningful. I've just basically scanned it. Yeah. I've ordered mine, but you've just been so kind to give me a copy. So tell us a little bit about that.
So it's called Be Different and Be Kind, and it's a story. That's honestly one of my favorite parts about it. What I mean is that there's a character, and you follow her story. Because as a school counselor who spent hours going into classrooms and reading to children, I know how important a story is. Right. Versus just telling them good values or good principles, right? And so that's my favorite.
Right. They'll remember the story.
They'll remember
the values are embedded in the story.
Yes. And so I'm the author, but I love that part. It really is meant to be a vehicle for parents and teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and principals and school counselors and grandparents, right?
Mm-hmm.
To use as a conversation with and a teaching opportunity with the children in their lives around the beauty of diversity. And truly, one of the things in the book is that diversity is awesome,
Right.
right? Which I believe strongly that we need to teach to children.
Yeah.
We can't assume that they think that.
Right.
They've got so
Interesting.
many different messages coming at them,
Right.
from all different points. And so we need to intentionally, as the adults in their lives, teach them that diversity is awesome and teach them what that looks like.
Right. And what I've learned from my travels, and I haven't traveled, I've traveled a lot, but I haven't been to Africa and I haven't been to Asia. But just in the travel that I've done, you know, I've learned what you said, the diversity is just it's endless, the beauty and the knowledge and the food. And,
Love the food.
it's just like, gosh, you guys, this is such a good thing. Why aren't we
Right.
embracing this instead of
Right.
fighting it? I know I just said that earlier, but it's like we got to just get on. I think it's just fear that's stopping people because they don't know how to deal with it, I guess. I mean, what is it?
I don't know if I really had. I mean, there's probably different layers of that. I think it's the way things have been.
Yeah, maybe so.
I think it's
And I'm trying to figure it out because to me, it's just, I just think it's so ridiculous. I love to cook, okay? And I love having people over. I just had people over in my office. We have a whole kitchen in our office.
Awesome.
And it's just great when you get people together. I learned this in Italy.
Yeah.
We get everyone around food and we're
Yeah.
eating, we're having fun. Everyone forgets about everything. I don't care if you're
Right.
Republican. I don't care if
Right.
you're black. I don't care if you're... Doesn't matter.
No.
We're all just having a good time and enjoying a great meal. We all
Yep.
cooked it together.
Yeah. It's
And
beautiful.
to me, it's like I want to learn or teach people how to just get to that point.
There's more things to unify us, right, than
Way more
separate
to
us.
unite.
But for some reason, people choose to focus on the things that separate us.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure in marriage, like my husband and I, early on, one of our principles was to agree to disagree. And we can be okay with that.
Right.
We can think completely different, and that's okay.
Right.
And we have to take that to each other.
Yeah.
Right? And of course we wouldn't all think the same way because we are all uniquely created differently.
Yeah.
And that was on purpose.
Right.
So as people who believe in a creator God, well, he did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Why do we fight that?
It's interesting because I think of the world. I mean, let's just say 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, whatever. There was no technology. We were all on separate continents. There was no way to there was no jets. There were no planes. There was no internet. There was no way for us to come together.
Right.
Okay. We were kind of in our own world, and
Yes.
we all looked the same, and everything was perfect. And now with technology and the fact the world is virtually shrunk to
It's a global world.
a global
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
We're being forced now to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like what I said before. It's like, are we gonna decide to become heaven
Right.
on earth, or are we gonna decide to become hell on earth? Now
Yeah.
that we have to deal with each other.
Right. It's
know?
I mean, I believe strongly that diversity is a gift.
It's
And
amazing.
the different perspectives and stories and food and
Yeah.
clothing and music.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
It's
and
endless.
Yeah, it just makes life sweeter and better.
So that's what I think.
So
I'm trying to get that message across to people out there. It's like, come on, you guys. There's nothing to worry about.
I think we
Right?
have to get over to making our experience, and this kind of ties in our experience and our perspective, the standard.
Right.
That's not how did we get to the point of us thinking that we are the standard,
Right.
right? And so we have to get over that and look at, again, it's the same. I feel like we keep saying the same thing, but the beauty of diversity of different voices, different skin colors, different cultures, ethnicities, all of that kind of coming together. And
Right.
I'm like you. I don't understand why that's such a hard
I don't know why
thing
it's such a hard thing.
for people to wrap their minds around.
Right. So, have you guys done traveling with the kids?
Very little, because
little?
you can imagine the budget of that.
Yeah. Well, that was my other question. Okay, so 9 kids. How do you do it economically?
I don't know, day by day sometimes. I mean, honestly, it's not. You need less than what you realize,
Yeah.
right? And so, I don't know that we live simply.
Yeah.
Honestly, we look at a lot of our play is outdoors. We eat home a lot. If we go out, it's
That's
really
funny because
a
that was
big
one of the questions
event.
I told a couple of people that I was interviewing you, and one of the questions, because I guess they know I'm a foodie, is that you got to find out what they do for dinner. Like, really, I'm just curious. Like, what do they do they cook different types of meals from different countries, or do you guys?
We probably have a lot more diversity in food than what typical families
Yeah,
do, just
that's
because
cool.
of our approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, talking just about food, Sam and I both grew up eating completely different foods,
Yeah.
right? Me
Yep.
in the Faroe Islands. So we both
Did you eat
cook
a lot of farro
too.
in the Faroe Islands?
A lot of fish.
A lot of fish.
A
Yeah.
lot of fish.
Yep.
So Sam and I both cook too. So we tag team that, and
Yep.
so we both
Do any
have.
of your kids cook?
Right now, like some of the older ones do,
Yeah, they're
yeah.
starting to get into it.
They're starting to, and we were kind of asking them to, with COVID and
Mm-hmm.
everybody being home. But our oldest has cooked a little bit here and there, our now adult child.
Yeah.
But I don't know, we eat a lot of, I mean, we would, if Sam and I maybe prefer to eat a lot differently than what we cook for our kids,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, I feel like our Christmas Eve tradition is actually sushi, and
Yeah.
Sam makes it. So there's probably more.
Sam and I are gonna become really good friends.
I used to help, but I found he's way better.
Oh,
And
you'll have to teach me because I love sushi. My dad, ironically, is Spanish, and he grew up in Durango, Colorado. My dad makes really good sushi. I don't know where he learned it, but
you need patience for and I'm more the like throw a lot of things together, and
yeah,
and he's got a lot more patience when
that's
it comes
cool.
to things like that. So.
Well, it'd be fun to have you and your whole clan over to our office for dinner some night. I would love to cook for all of you and just get to know these kids. This sounds like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
Well, the beautiful thing in that is that right now we're in a season of having built-in babysitters. Is what we
Oh,
call 'em.
that's good.
So, and moving to Arizona, we honestly knew Sam's sister's here, but we knew nobody else. And so we are regular daters. So we date each other
Good.
and do that on a weekly basis.
That's good.
We love the movies. We do love to go out and find really good restaurants. And so we do that. We hike.
Yep.
I run every single day.
Good for you.
So there's definitely things that we're still doing for ourselves as
Right.
individuals and also as a couple. So
Yeah. So do all the kids get along really well?
for the most part, yeah. But
Like normal kids.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that for sure. Although there's certainly times when they don't,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In all honesty, so. Yeah.
How's the whole COVID situation in terms of like that's one thing I've been talking to a lot of people about is with 9 kids all trying to Zoom simultaneously. How do you do that?
Creatively, patiently. Honestly, I feel like it was different in the spring from now because the approach to education was different. Because I work in education, so the approach to education was different in the spring and from now. Although, in all honesty, I feel like the district that my kids belong to and the one that I work for, we're doing a great job.
Good.
And Sam and I have been blown away at how well it honestly is going. That's not to say it's going perfectly, right?
Right.
But we can look at the things that are working really well, and the teachers are teaching full-time online.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can, picture 8 different kids in different parts of the house doing online schooling. And then Sam and I working from home as well. So
Wow.
it's something else to, you could probably make a little show just from a day of that. But honestly, I feel like the teachers are being heroic and are working so hard. It's quite awesome, honestly. And I know this is a big topic in the nation right now. And we're doing it because Arizona starts right before a lot of other states do, and
Yep.
I feel like it's going really well.
Good.
Like all things considered, is it better for us all to be in the actual? Yeah, it is. But and our son who is blind, right? Imagine trying to come up with a plan, and I just feel like everybody is doing a good job and it's working.
Yeah,
and so
that's good.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think we should err on safety first.
Absolutely.
And you're seeing the numbers in Europe kind of starting to climb up already a little bit, and I'm just worried about what it's going to be like in the fall here.
Yeah.
The nice thing here is we're the flip. Everyone can eat outside, and everyone,
Right. Right.
So maybe in Arizona it'll be okay, and everywhere else it's going to be tough again. So who knows?
Who
I mean,
knows?
there's just no way to know, is there?
No, it's unknown.
Yeah. Every
right?
day you just take
Every
it.
day's a gift, and
Every
make the
day's a
most
gift.
of it.
So looking ahead, you've got a second children's book in the works, right?
I do. It's really close to coming out.
And what's it titled?
The title is Hope.
Hope.
A story about anti-racism.
Very good.
So again, it's a story, and it does. Is
it aimed towards children again?
It is aimed towards children again. It does share about what racism looks like, and does make it in a friendly. I did bring a very draft copy here with me, but in a kid kind of friendly way.
Yeah.
But the intention of it is also like the title is hope, and I'm really excited about it. I've had some people read it, to write endorsements, and just the feedback has been really good. And it's something that I really sat with the specific wording of it very, very carefully. And it was a story that came to me quickly. Be Different and Be Kind. That story came very quickly. And the next one came equally quickly, but the wording of it, I sat very, I sat with much longer in. Because there's just so many different angles to consider. And I wanted it to be honest. I wanted it to be, let's talk about this out in the open.
Right.
And then also let's talk about practically things that we can do. And again, in story format. And so I'm hoping that it does just like what the title says, in that it brings hope.
Right.
And also that it stirs people to change in action.
Right.
To kind of be the change that we need in our nation right now.
And that's what I'm trying to do with my crew at my office and stuff, is just, I think, we live in our own little bubbles, and it's just, we're in our little comfort zone, and it's like, we don't mix,
Right. Right.
And like I said before, the whole world is just getting closer and closer. And what we're trying to do is we're getting involved with a group called Elevate. I don't know if you know about Elevate. One of our clients, Tom Lehman, the famous golfer, he's heading this Elevate group, and it's basically working with inner city kids from different diverse backgrounds and getting them into businesses and helping them get to college. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a design Saturday where I get 8 kids from different schools.
Do you know I work in an inner city school?
Okay, well, we need to talk. We need to hook you up with Elevate, actually.
Yeah.
They are an amazing group. And so my goal is to get, let's just say a handful of kids to our office, spend the morning talking about architecture design.
Awesome.
We're going to take them to 3 projects, one
so
that's
cool.
just starting, one that's almost done, and then we've got a couple famous clients. We'll take them to maybe their house.
That's awesome. I love that.
And just show these kids, because they have no vision.
No, they don't.
They have no clue of what an architect even does and the opportunity that that's there. There's so many jobs in our field that do not require a college education. And to me, it's like, okay, look, don't let the money be an excuse.
Right.
Here's a way you can do it.
Yeah.
And so what my point on this whole thing is just, I think there needs to be more people making the effort to jump in there and try to connect with these other avenues of people that you'll never connect with any other way.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And my goal at the end of that day is then have the parents do a little design competition,
cool.
and then have the parents come and have the kids present the design.
I love that.
So then I get a chance to meet some of the parents. Yep. And the way I became an architect was really somewhat similar. Is I went to a architect's office when I was 14, 15, and I loved it. Yeah. I had no clue what an architect did. But that was just that one little 2 or 3 little visits was all it took.
Yep.
And to me, it's like, if we can do that and just branch into these different avenues.
Yep. I love it.
I just think there's so much opportunity for we're having trouble finding people to work.
Yeah. You're trouble finding people to work?
Yeah. We're having trouble finding people that want to do the work and can do the builders. All the builders, they can't find people to work.
Wow.
So there's so much and to me, it's like the dots somewhere the dots aren't being connected.
No.
And I think a lot of kids don't know about these opportunities.
No, they don't. I love that you said vision.
Yeah.
Because from working in an inner city community and working kindergarten to 8th grade, I feel like especially my middle schoolers, 5th grade and up, need a vision for their life.
And that's what I've been telling Elevate. I said, I'd like to get some kids that are like around, because what it was for me was like, I was 10. I think 14, 15, it's maybe too late. And 10, it was like, that's all I need to flip that switch.
Yep. They need something to give them hope, right?
Hope.
And focus on and have a vision for their future that it will look differently than maybe what they're living right now.
And
so
my goal with this is just to keep it going, like not just have that one Saturday, but then we check in, 3 months later, come on back for another. Now you look at that house that you saw, look at even further, and just give them a chance to keep going.
Yep, that's awesome.
So we'll talk about that because I want to hook you up with them and just. You're just an amazing lady. You have an amazing wife, Sam. That's all I can say. I haven't talked to you yet. You must be amazing also. So tell us, how do we find you? How do we get a hold of you? We'll post all of your links on our podcast story notes, but where do we find you?
So I
know you're on Instagram.
I'm on Instagram under Maria Hansen-Quine and on Facebook under Precious Jules Mama Maria Hansen-Quine.
Okay, love that.
That's what I used to, my blog used to be. My books right now are sold on Amazon.
Okay.
Like I told you.
We'll put the links on the thing.
I'm hoping that I will have my books are self-published, that a publisher will pick them up because I'd love to see them be in stores everywhere. And
that's
so
awesome. They should be in stores everywhere. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
So I am looking forward to sushi. I'm looking forward to cooking for you guys. Yeah, I get so involved.
I love
and
it.
it's just like, okay, I love that thrive.
If you're game,
is that what you call it?
Thriving.
I'm a thrive maniac, okay? And everyone who knows me knows that. They're like, oh, God, there he goes again. But
I love that. That's how we roll.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So this has been
fun.
This is just great. I've been getting tingles all through this podcast. So I know this is just the start of something really big.
Yeah, thank you.
And so I'm very, very excited.
Thank you for having me. It's
You're
really
welcome.
been such
this
a gift.
Has been awesome.
And fun.
Thanks for coming all the way over this way, too.
Of course.
You guys are awesome.
Of course.
I want to say a big thank you to my good friends at Stockett Tile and Granite Company, where your project is our priority. I want to thank the Stockett team along with so many others who contributed to the success of our fabulous demonstration kitchen in our new Candelaria design office expansion. You will have to check out our online video cooking classes, and our kitchen is amazing. I've had the pleasure of working with the Stockett team for nearly 40 years on many spectacular projects, and trust me, they are the epitome of excellence when it comes to tile, marble, and granite work, bar none. Their skill and customer service is impeccable, and the bottom line is they are just good people. I have traveled with, dined with, and just had good times, both personally and professionally, with Dave Stockett and his lovely wife, Becky, and they are the best. When it comes to your next tile and stone project, make sure Stockett Tile and Granite is a part of your team. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. We encourage you to write a review, screenshot it, and share it with your friends. Please instant message it to me and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights to inspiring living next week.